branding. Dear, oh
You
dear.
gotta get the hat on.
There you go.
The fans
Brown car guy is in the house.
in the
So
house.
in the house. So ever since you got your new chief executive
President.
chief in order, whatever,
Sure.
I've been meaning to do a video on obviously for the Brown Car Guy channel on how this affects the car industry. But the trouble is, like, every time I complete a script and I go,
Right.
right, okay, I've done my research, got the script ready, I'll record this tomorrow. I wake up and he's done something else. Do you know what I mean? Or somebody's retaliated, or something has changed, and it's just like,
Here
can't
was
do
the
that
best
now.
one. I went to bed last night.
Uh-huh.
And when I was going to sleep, it said Trump, and now said that the United States now is going to take over Gaza Strip.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was chuckling because I'm like, and of course, because Trump wants to build
yeah,
condos, and
yeah,
they've never hid that on the sea.
yeah,
And this morning, I was reading all the Middle Eastern countries' response to that,
yeah,
including the PLO,
yeah.
and they're like, "Dude, are you effing crazy?" So it's an interesting time.
If
But
you watch the footage
yeah,
of the those people that are going back, the Gaza people that are now going back to their homes, and
right,
you see you look around them and there's nothing but devastation. It's just everything
right.
is just crumbled, everything is destroyed, and yet they're so happy to be
To go
able
home,
to go back. Do you know what I mean? And so, when you make these grand sweeping statements about, oh, we'll just take these people and we'll just put them over here because then we can do it. And
right,
it's like,
right.
but these are people, and people are a lot more complex than, just picking up some pawns and putting them over there, sort of thing. Things like that are easier said than done because, we have a history. We have a history
Yes,
in humanity of trying to displace people, and we very well know the reaction that gets when you try and displace the people
Yeah.
from wherever they are. So to
yeah.
be able to just
I don't think Donnie cares.
no,
Do you
no,
know
no,
what?
he's just
Do
looking
you
at the
know what,
real estate.
guys? You know what I'm going to do? I'm
Yeah,
going to
No,
displace you
nobody knows what
both.
you're going to do, David.
yeah.
I'm going to displace you both.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Well, there's
We're
a good
gonna have to.
displacement.
It's a good displacement, but I think we might have to rename the show. The sermon from the German, because the German will be sold very shortly. So
It's okay. The kids
Well,
don't. The kids
yeah.
don't. The kids don't know that. And what the kids don't know doesn't hurt them. It's still
the
a sermon
brown
from the German.
sermon from
We're
the
good.
brown car guy or something. I don't know.
Call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah,
You'll get
whatever you
another
like,
German
whatever you
one
like.
day.
Well, you know
But
what? I
you,
might do. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to see what's next.
you let us know. We can always change the name. They
But-
come for you, my friend, not for us. Okay.
But so the update to anybody that does follow that, if anybody watching this does want to know, then the car, I put the car up for sale on officially, like with a proper
Ooh.
advert and everything, on
Okay.
the Monday night, and I had quite a lot of interest yesterday.
Nice.
Four people have been to see the car already yesterday, and I think probably by the weekend it'll be gone. So you can look forward to an emotional farewell
Yeah.
of my beloved BMW E30 1989 325i.
Have you
but,
got a special black brown car guy cap to put
I
on?
should have done that, right? Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah, like
We had just have to black and white the footage or something.
Let's not go down that road. Let's not go down that road.
But so anyway, so that's the update on that. So stay tuned, or stay tuned to my channel, and you'll find out what's happening with the BCG BMW E30. But
or next month in March, he'll be crying in his coffee mug.
Yeah.
So, or his
And,
Yeah.
and how does your lady wife feel about it? Because she's not such a
she's
great.
furious.
Wait a minute. I have a
She's
question.
furious,
Why
yeah.
do you have to
Yeah.
wait, lady wife? Wouldn't we just assume his wife is a lady? Why do you have to say lady wife?
Hey, it's
Lady-
the 21st century. Anything's possible. You know?
We're all old school guys here. When we say
Exactly,
wife, we mean
exactly.
female. Why
Exactly,
do you
and
say lady
it would
wife?
be because it would be his good lady.
Yes,
You see,
there you
so
go.
it's being
Well, how do we
polite.
know she's good?
No, but
What's the
he's
story? Why does it
no,
say
but
wife?
You know.
David
Look,
is
it
saying-
would have sounded different if I'd have said, "How's your lady boy wife?" You know what I mean? 'Cause-
If he was in
But I
Thailand, no, I think it's an
but
everyday thing.
I
But
didn't say that.
That's very
Okay.
disturbing. No, David
Yes.
is just using the
Proper.
old school
Thank you.
charm,
Thank you,
of
Giselle.
how you
Thank
say
you.
these things, you know. But no, but she's furious,
okay,
and the reason that she's furious is because she says that I deceived her, and the reason that she says I deceived her is because when we bought this thing, of course, she said, "Darling, don't worry, you never lose money on a classic. It's
Oh
probably
my
going to go
God.
up on value, right? It's going to go up in value. It'll be great. We'll
Right,
never
right.
lose money on it." And here I am taking a 50% hit on on what it originally cost. So yeah, she's not best pleased.
So
Can I
she's
say-
moved.
let me just
She's
say
moved from
something,
lady
Neil.
wife to trouble and strife. Then
There you go.
Trouble and strife.
But here's what's interesting about what you
No,
just
we
said.
are in London, so that is Cockney rhyming slang. So there you go.
There you go. But here's what's really interesting. The car market in general, whether it's a supercar
Yeah.
or a normal car, they're all taking hits. Like they're
Yeah.
not what it was during COVID. I think they raised the prices became stupid because people were bored.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
prices aren't stupid anymore because people aren't bored and they're like, it's a car.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean?
No,
So even the
you're
Bugattis
absolutely
and
right.
the Ferraris, everything are coming down in price.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. There has definitely been a slowdown in the marketplace. A couple of things were happening. We were in COVID. We were coming off a worldwide recession as well, and what people were finding was that along with what was it, watches, art,
Yep.
and I think wine as well. I think
Yeah.
these three things were like the top investment, and then cars were right up there. Yeah. So people were sort of moving their money into cars, so that was artificially inflating the value of cars. And then people were sitting in lockdown at home on the computer with money they weren't spending, and they were going, "Oh, I've always wanted one of those, so I'll just buy it."
Yep.
You know, a buddy of
And now
mine
they're all
over
for
here.
sale.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine over here who runs Classic American Sales, specialist in classic Mustangs. And he said at the time it was crazy. He said people were just calling up and said, "You know that car on your website? I'll buy it." He said, "Do you want to see it? Do you want to drive?" He said, "No, I'm just buying it. Send it to me."
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. You know, it was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So the market's become more realistic, and prices have slowed down. I wouldn't say they've tumbled, but they've certainly slowed down. But of course, the trouble with mine is that I'm taking a hit on it because there's an extensive bit of work that needs to be done, which is like one of these things with classic cars, which you can't see, but there's that within the bulkhead there's some rust. So there's always like that there's going to be an expensive job there, and the job itself is not expensive, but it's the process of removing the engine and removing the interior to get to it, and that's where the labor costs are high. So in order to be reasonable, to not deceive anybody and to sell it at a correct price that will enable the next buyer to then invest in it, I had to cut the price by 50%. Hello, Vicky. Maybe you can.
Vicky, welcome to the show. Vicky had audio trouble, but now she's here. Now, Vicky, just to let you know, the
StreamYard, I had to like
just,
reboot twice or something. Can you guys hear me?
we hear you.
Yeah.
We hear you.
No, we
Yeah.
can't
Now,
hear you at all.
Okay.
just to let you know, the reason what we're talking about is what he was talking about right there is lady boys and how you rebuild them. So that's the topic that we started with this morning. You missed the Gaza Strip topic, and that's for the people that don't know Gaza Strip. It's not to make your teeth whiter. So there you go.
That
So yeah,
explains the bulkhead thing. Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
Bulkhead and ladyboys. Right now, the mind boggles.
There you go. Now people are like, what the heck?
You can see all the viewer numbers are going up now.
Seriously, they're
Now
like,
they're
what
going
the
up
hell
short.
is this about?
They're calling their friends.
Hey,
They're talking about ladyboys.
Talking of, I was going to say, talking of ladyboys, talking of viewer numbers, congratulations, your car reviews, certainly the electric car reviews,
Interesting.
have done really well.
Are
on
flying
that.
through the roof. Yeah.
Very much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and
Yeah.
that's interesting to
I'm
hear.
not so sure about the guy who presents the show, but you know, the
Yeah, I
cast.
know.
Yeah, the
I know.
guy that presents the show.
I'm thinking
totally
of getting rid of
useless,
him.
but
I'm
I
thinking
would
of
get
getting.
rid of
Yeah,
that guy.
I think I'm going to get rid of him. I'll replace him with an AI avatar. So
Yeah, finally. So no. Oh my God. All right. So what we really are going to talk about today, kids, is the Britain's loss of faith in democracy. But that's
oh,
not just Britain. That is a global thing that is happening. And we were discussing Gaza Strip earlier. And now we're going to kind of get into unfortunately, now we're going to get into the real part of
Is
the
that
show.
the same as the Hollywood Strip or the Las Vegas Strip now? Is that what they're
The
called?
Las Vegas Strip, they've built
that's the
democracy many years ago.
refugee strip now,
That's
isn't
the
it?
rest
Not LA.
refugees. Yeah, that's a whole nother kind of strip.
shouldn't
You know,
laugh
so
really. Shouldn't laugh though.
yeah, why not? It's who's gonna know? But no, if you think about it, though, losing democracy or the faith in democracy in Britain, we've already done it here in the States. We've already lost faith in our democracy.
So before you get into that, let me put this into
Yeah.
context for people that are watching. And this was an article that was non-motoring that I wrote because I do that sometimes because I just can't help myself.
Well, you're
And
right.
yeah, I write. It's crazy. I know.
Crayon.
Who reads?
Well,
God, come
Who
on.
reads?
I know.
You say who reads? Right.
Who reads? Well, who writes? Anyway, so
Not a dinosaur activity.
every exactly every now and then things sort of they prey on my mind and I'm like it's a therapeutic thing. It's like let me write about it and I'll get it out of the way and done, it's like okay. So what happened is that two surveys, they came out on the same day about a couple of weeks ago here in the UK.
Right.
And they were very interesting. This was in the wake of obviously the new Trump presidency or the re-presidency, if you can call it that. And these two surveys were done here in the UK. And there was one survey that was done amongst ordinary people. And what they did was very, very clever. They took Trump's inauguration speech and they extracted sort of policy declarations from within that. They applied it to UK policy. So, for example, immigration, where he was talking about Mexico, here they turned it into like people coming in on boats, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So they just tweaked it a little bit. And then they sent these out to these people without telling them that they're Trumpian policies.
Wow.
And what they found was that overwhelmingly for most of these policies, something like 56-60% of people here actually favored his policies. Even we're talking not just conservatives, but we're talking
Right.
even Labour and Liberals were like, oh yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, I'm in with that. So that was one aspect of something that was actually, it was a very clever thing to do, and it was very remarkable. And we can go through some of those in a minute. But just
Sure.
for the other one, the second one, and it came out on the same day, was they did a survey of young people, and they asked young people, it's like, who do you want to govern you? And incredibly, young people said that actually they would quite fancy a dictatorship, and a
'Cause they're
military dictatorship at that. And this was really kind of like, what the heck? Where has that come from? And this is kind of what I got into. And you could see a little bit of like, there is in the UK, and again, I know you said that this is a global phenomenon, but just again,
Right.
to give it that UK context, we have had a period of time now where we've had a revolving door at 10 Downing Street of prime ministers, and none of them have been able to do their job properly. And none of them have been, universally liked. Even if you
Right.
take Boris Johnson, which is a personality and a charismatic figure, and he has a loyal following, but when I say not universally liked, and especially in the wake of COVID and the Partygate scandals and all the rest of it. So you can kind of understand, especially with younger people growing up, not familiar with British history or British politics of the past, seeing, from David Cameron onwards, the disaster
Right.
trail of ex-prime ministers that we've had in 10 Downing Street. You can kind of understand the sort of frustration that they're having. And they're looking across and they're going, and it's everything here is wishy-washy. Nobody makes any decisions. We decide to build a rail network across the UK, and then 10 years later we go, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Like right now they're talking about, oh, we're going to have a third runway at Heathrow. Oh, cool. When? 20 years time. What?
Right.
I mean, what's the point of that? It's going to revive the economy. Yes, in 20 years time. So it doesn't really help. So I think that people are a little bit frustrated and fed up with the wishy-washiness and the fact that there aren't these personalities and stuff like that. So it really intrigued me that there were these two things that were happening. And this is kind of the basis of where we started. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to have a look at this.
But before you go into it, let me just say this. You know, the young people, one, they don't know history because they don't get taught history, and they're too stupid and lazy to read a book or any books. Hence why we have the guy who we have in the White House right now, doing stuff that he's doing, and, you know, look in the 1930s and see how that worked. The other thing is that if you want to live in a military dictatorship, go to Trinidad and Tobago, because that's really what it is. Go to Thailand. I mean, I can Singapore. They're not dictatorships, wink, wink. They're democracies. However, say something about the government or do something, and you go to a camp. That's why Vicky was in North Korea, because she had to go to a camp. And that's why the South Korean president and her had to break the affair over.
That's
But I'm just
I was gonna
saying.
say, we had a military coup when I was there, so that was fun.
Yes.
All over Vicky.
Yeah, be careful, Vicky.
Did you
You're going to be
instigate that?
invited.
Yes.
You'll be invited all across the whole world now. Come, Vicky,
From
come to our country.
Yeah. I'm just saying though, if you want to see, if you think your democracy sucks, go get a military dictatorship. And when you go, you know what? I don't think General so-and-so or President so-and-so is a really good person. And
So
when your neighbor reports you, then, you know.
Let me just, before I get into this, let me play devil's advocate and argue the case for dictatorship.
Okay.
Because I have lived in dictatorship of sorts, you know, and I've been to places under dictatorship. So most recently, of course, as you know, I lived in Dubai. Now, I wouldn't say Dubai is a dictatorship, but it is, you know, monarchy and what have you.
It's a monarch.
And you have a ruler of Dubai and stuff like that. In a sense, it's kind of like a benign dictatorship. And the reality of Dubai is like, we're going to create a wonderful world for you guys. The only thing that we ask is that you all stay in line. And that's it, you know. And I think that, you know, for a lot of people, it's like, well, it's not a bad deal, you know, because lifestyle's pretty good there. It's very safe. It's very secure. You know, as long as you don't do stuff that the state doesn't want you to do, you're okay. You know, and actually the other stuff about it is, as I was talking earlier, in the UK, you decide to build a third runway at Heathrow and they say, when will it be ready? 20 years time. In the Middle East, they'd be like, we can build 20 airports in that time. You know what I mean?
I was say, the third runway will take about a day and a half.
Exactly.
So, you know,
it's a third runway. When will it be ready? It's ready, mate. It's done. It's just done.
We discussed it at 8 in. It's 5 this afternoon. We've already done it. The camels are out. We're good.
Can you hear that plane? That's the third runway. That's where it's landing. You know, so that's how it works. And then also, if we talk about military dictatorship, and I'll go back to the 80s. And I remember my first trip to Karachi in Pakistan. And at the time, it was under the dictatorship of President Zia al-Haq, the it was a military dictatorship. I think he was a general. And, you know, again, you know, I think he'd got power by executing the previous, I don't know fully.
That's the way you do it.
That's the way you do it, right? But I have to tell you this. That period, I think I did 2 trips at that time. And that period of time there was the safest I've ever known that country. Honestly, it's like, you know, everything was secure. We were walking around at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night, all, you know, families, women who were just roaming around the streets, not a problem. You could go anywhere, do anything. It was not an issue, you know. And like now, of course, now those same neighborhoods that I'm talking about, where you could just walk around. Now, each of those neighborhoods has a guard and a security guard that residents pay for. And they're all armed guards, you know. And you know, the level of safety and security is just not there, and everybody's obviously moaning and complaining about it.
If you're trying to sell a dictatorship, and Vicky will like this part, just so women can walk around at 2 or 3 in the morning. Everyone's in. Are you kidding? Hot chicks walking around at 2 or 3 in the morning. There you go. I need a dictatorship.
Let's get one of those in. Yeah.
There you go. I told the story. Last time we were in Dubai, we were coming back from the Winston Churchill Club. And, you know, we were just doing our thing and walking. We're at the light. You're not allowed to cross, even though there's no cars, because amazingly, between the drones and the police, you get a ticket. So we just stood there. But this girl, between her limited Hermes bag, her outfits, her jewelry, she was $3 million worth of just accessories. And I said to her, "Do you feel safe?" And she's like, "Yes, it's the safest city in the world." And like she said, "Look, there's cameras there, and she said, "God forbid something would happen right now." She said, "The police will be here in 2 seconds." And then the next day, as we told the story, I was saying that to my driver. He goes, "Oh yeah, they're here like that." And there was an accident right in front of us. Literally within 10 seconds, there were drones. A minute later, a police car. I'm like, where did they come from? So yes, it is the safest city. So if you want to live in an Orwellian world, Big Brother. it's a great place. Now,
Yeah.
the orange man saying that he wants to take over Gaza and the Middle East now having a heart attack over all this. I don't know how safe any of that's going to be. Because he's talking about moving in military troops.
So before we get into that, let's talk about the that survey, and we talk about Trumpian policies. So declaring a national emergency in the channel, because obviously we get the boats coming into this is immigration related, to tackle immigration. 58% supported that policy, which was similar to Trump's policy. Filling up our gas reserves and exporting British energy all over the world. 55% agreed. Forging a merit-based colorblind society also gained traction. 53% said yes, we like that. So this is where Trump says that he doesn't want. He's pushing back against diversity, equity, and inclusion.
DEI, there's no more DEI here. It's just white guys running the country. Only white guys.
And then what were the other ones? And so the only ones that where there was pushback was like ending net zero and removing support for electric vehicles. So that's where I guess where some younger people were like, no, we do need to do that because we're going to be here a bit longer than you old guys, and we need to look after the planet a little bit. But so that's where the difference was.
I have a question about this. So, and this has always bothered me, even as a child. So they're saying oil came from dinosaurs, correct? That's what we're saying, which sounds like BS to me.
Yeah.
Why can't? Because if that's the case, why don't I just take Vicky and all her lovers from the Korean government, and when they're dead, 1,000,000 years from now, I drill, and I have oil. What's the difference between her and a dinosaur? Not saying you're a dinosaur, Vicky, or me, or David's definitely a dinosaur, so we probably get oil tomorrow. But what do you? But so I don't get. That's the dumbest hypothesis I've ever heard in my life. Why can't it just be a reserve in the earth that we just drill from? Why is it dinosaurs? And how did they become oil? Because then wouldn't every dead person become oil?
In 65 million years, probably.
Okay, but
we don't have the supply built up of people when there were dinosaurs around that would, fill in that gap. So
but theoretically, think about how many dinosaurs you need to have all this oil.
There were a lot of dinosaurs, and they were pretty big.
Have you seen the people here in America?
But look. To be fair, I mean, there are other ways to make petroleum, oil-based products than just drilling them. And and we can. I mean, the reality is that we have reserves. We have greater reserves than we thought. Because remember in the 70s we said we had 30 years left. Well, we should have run out by now, but we still got it. And apparently there's still more reserves. So we still have oil. But also don't forget, people when they think about oil, they just think about cars. But the reality is there's like 1,500 different daily products that we use that all require oil. As part of the production.
Virtually everything you touch.
From plastics to everything. So when you have people like Just Stop Oil saying Just Stop Oil, it's like, well, that's not possible because then we'll become cavemen again because then we won't have anything. So we do need it, but there are processes. So there are things like carbon extraction, there are biofuels, there are e-fuels, there are other ways of doing it. So there are elements that can be explored.
Now, under Trump's presidency, I don't think you're allowed to say biofuel anymore because it sounds like bi. So you have to just say different alternative fuels, like the LGBTQ
we'll have a new movement as well.
It's not allowed to say biofuel anymore. So it's just one of those things.
We'll call ourselves Stop the Cavemen. And
Stop the
Cavemen.
Go out.
That's the thing. We have all these people here, and they're on the motorways and they close down the capital here because they're all against oil. And then what happens is they spray them with water. But they
should spray them with oil.
Yeah, but they just spray them with water. But the thing is, of course, that there's now an injunction towards the riot police that they're only allowed to have a reduced pressure of water towards these protesters.
Right.
And I think to myself, well, if you look around other places on the planet and you see the news stuff which is happening, when you get hit by a water cannon, your ass goes about 100 meters up to the air and off somewhere else, and then a whole load of rather stoutly gentlemen and ladies come along with very large sticks and whack you a lot. And for some reason or another, that seems to solve a lot of the protesting problems.
So this actually then brings us back to the same topic of discussion that we're talking about, because
whacking people with large
if you live in a dictatorship, you will not have people sitting down in the middle of the M25 and blocking up essential traffic for that day, including emergency services, fire brigades, ambulances, and all the rest of it, because they won't be allowed to do that.
But is your
for a
playboy
second.
then is your playboy now that they should all be whacked with large sticks and they should all be washed away with water cannons?
I like it.
I think that, personally, and we've actually discussed this in a previous show, I'm pretty sure, but with the Just Stop Oil protesters, when they disrupt,
Not just them, just protesters in general.
protesters, yeah, but particularly Just Stop Oil, because Just Stop Oil were targeting traffic. They were particularly targeting traffic.
Right.
So they were targeting roads. So they were gluing themselves to the tarmac and blocking off roads. When you find that people are stuck in ambulances that need to get to hospital in 5 minutes, or they're dead, and then but the Just Stop Oil protesters have blocked the road, then you go, yeah, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable, And I think that, again, we go back to this question of again, let me give you that stat. So 52% of Gen Z, whatever.
That's Vicky's generation.
13 to 27, right? They said the UK would be a better place if a stronger leader was in charge who does not have to bother with parliament and elections. So
they understand what a king is. Like, you're in a constitutional monarchy. Do they understand the history of their own country? Like, why they stopped doing that and what?
Vicky, nobody gets history. There's no history anymore.
What is
These
it?
kids don't know.
5 or 11?
I'll tell you what, guys, I'm buying up every brown shirt I can get from Shein, and then stack them all up. There'll be a run on them.
No, but you're talking about young people here in the UK not understanding.
And old people.
But didn't Elon Musk say the king should take over in the UK? Does he not understand how the UK monarchy works?
He wants to rename the English Channel.
Power,
Yeah,
right, but he also wants to name the English Channel the George Washington Channel. Yeah. So no, he has no clue. This guy lives in his own fairy tale land. He's
America.
He bought America.
Yeah.
He's trying to get his robots out. This is going to be like iRobot. The robots are going to be policing us.
Basically,
and if you do something, the robot's going to probably kill.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, I'm sorry, and I say this, and I don't care. Elon, you can sue me. I don't really give a shit. He reminds me of Goebbels. That's all. He's like one of those guys. He's just doing what the henchman says, but I'm not sure who's
pulling chicken farmer as well.
Strings.
Do you think?
I don't know who's pulling whose string. Let me just say this. This just came across the FT as news. Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel vows to restart the war in Gaza. Israel Prime Minister makes a most explicit comment yet, suggesting he will not seek a lasting truce.
Yeah.
So there you go. So
because he's going to go to prison. He'll go to prison when he's done.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
No, he won't. And,
he has a different agenda to everybody else.
But he won't go to prison because Donnie's going to come in with American troops, and he will become the new mayor or whatever Gaza is, so they can build the Trump Towers on the sea.
Basically.
Yeah. That's what's going on.
I mean, it's absolutely tragic. But again, when you talk about, I compared Elon Musk to Hugo Drax from the movie Moonraker, the Bond villain. Because Hugo Drax basically wanted to. You remember at the end of the movie, he takes the best Aryan couples from all of them, puts them all into this thing in space, and then plans to poison everybody on Earth. Right. And so that then they can repopulate, I mean, it's very, if you think about it, and so I compared him to that because it's like, that's kind of the whole SpaceX thing, the whole, we're all going to move to Mars and screw the Earth sort of thing, after we've, got all the resources out of it. But, and let's just go on record as saying that was a Nazi salute. I mean, there's no question that was a Nazi salute. Yeah. That was a Nazi salute, But it's when you start to think about the fact that they're not even hiding their plans. Yes, okay, Gaza, we're just going to turn it into a giant resort. That's what we really wanted to do all along. I mean, it's like you're not even attempting to hide what your agenda is and what your plan is. And I guess that either that, again, going back to the topic that we're discussing, either that sort of behavior appeals to a certain segment of people, or actually is putting them off democracy altogether, saying, well, it doesn't work because we've applied democracy and this is what we've ended up with.
But it's actually, if you think about it, if you know nothing about the history of the Middle East, but you see, you're whatever, you're 12 and a half, you just turned the TV on, or 21 or whatever stupid age, you turn the TV on and you see all this desolation, and then Donnie comes along and says, you know what, guys? we'll clear it all out for you. We'll tarmac the bits we don't like. We take out all the mines and we do all of that, and we'll build nice streets which will lead to a casino. Because I think probably what will happen is that the Palestinians will become like the Native Americans in the US, and Donny will give them all casinos so they can run, tax free.
Yeah.
That'll be his incentive, and the Gaza Strip will just be that. It'll just be one big
His
casino.
incentive until just now, because he watches. So Donnie now is like, hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but
Well,
the
yeah, I
thing
mean,
about it is, if you think
they're
if you're
only looking through old movies to get their ideas. I mean, if you go
Yeah.
back to Superman 1, 1978, the original Superman the movie,
Sure, Christopher Reeves.
you think about what was Lex Luthor's plan in that movie. His plan was to put missiles into the fault line to
Right.
get rid of that part of California, wasn't it? And so,
Yeah.
because what he'd done is he bought all the dead bit of it, all the bit that didn't mean it. He bought all of that for cheap. He thought, I'm just going to get rid of all of this, and then I'll have the new real estate. I'll have the new,
Right.
seafront
but
property.
joking apart, though, you can see that for a lot of people that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Clear out the cars because it looks like a wasteland.
Yeah.
This is victory. What does victory look like?
I mean, the
it
thing
looks
is, like, if you were
like
serious
it looks
about
like
this,
devastation and nothing.
it is.
And the Palestinians, well, they've moved before, so they can move again. There was some of them in the Lebanon. There's some of them are in Jordan.
Yeah, the Jews moved too. So I mean, it's like that's a poor excuse. Here's the other thing is interesting. Though. You're talking about Gaza. Let's talk now. Trump wants to take over the Panama Canal. He wants to invade Greenland, and he says,
don't you own that
the
already?
51st state. We own everything.
Did I miss that? Did I miss that? I thought news over here, but you already owned it.
They said that, but going back to the Gaza thing, it's like the fact that, like, there's a show this morning here that happens, and they have political discussion on that, and there were people on there going, oh, actually this makes a lot of sense, and you go again,
for a lot of people,
you play devil's advocate, and you go, okay, well, if it makes sense, then maybe it's the optics that are wrong. So say, for example, if Saudi Arabia had stepped forward and said, you know what, we're going to buy Gaza. Yeah. And then we'll accommodate the Palestinians, we'll rebuild their land, and then we'll repatriate them to there. Then I think a lot of people will be like, okay, that makes sense. That could actually work, And I think that sometimes it's a case of the optics of these things. When you have old white men dictating what should happen in the rest of the world, then the optics of that is historically not great, is it?
Shazad, what's the difference between that or between somebody with a ruler and a pencil carving up Africa?
Well, that's Churchill.
That's basically what the British did for
exactly.
Churchill did that.
Or Iran and Iraq, where they just
and India and Pakistan.
Yeah. Exactly. The Kurds did. Oh, the Kurds. What are they? That's something you get. That's something when the milk goes off. Yeah. And so they were of no value. So we'll just draw a line across it. And don't ignore the native people that are living there. And look at the issues that come from that. And I think
I can tell you
because they don't
sort of. 1 million people died in 1947 after India and
the partition
was partitioned. Just in people moving across, including when I learned a few decades ago when I made a trip there, some relatives of ours, and I was like, and I met one relative, and he had one hand was missing. And I was a kid at the time, I was a bit embarrassed. I asked my parents afterwards, I was like, what's that story? What's that about? He said he was on the train, and the train was hijacked. They were coming into Pakistan from India side, and the train was hijacked, and they took his wife, and he was trying to save her, and they chopped his hand off. And that's what happened. And I said, what happened to the wife? And she said, well, they took her. And then she became somebody else's wife. And the weird thing is that after 40 years or whatever it was, they actually got back in touch. But now she's got a whole different life now, and that was it, So, but if you think of the devastation and the tragedies that happen, this is the reality of somebody like Donny saying, oh, we'll just move these people here and we'll just turn this into a resort. But or just drawing a line across a country, not realizing what is the human impact of doing something like that.
But they don't care about the human impact. And the other thing I think you have to look at is the orange man really trying to be like the little guy with the mustache, or that could be Elon. Yeah. But is he trying to really be now the king or dictator of the world?
Yeah, he is.
But I'm saying, if you look at it, like all these tariff threats, people still don't understand what a tariff is, which I'm shocked. It's like they're dumber than a box of rocks. Yeah. And I'm talking like the American people, let's give them tariffs. I'm like, moron. it's going to cost you
It's
more.
going to cost you more money.
And they're like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, do you understand what a tariff is and how it works? And I literally had this dialogue the other day with somebody, and they go, no, it's good that we're giving these tariffs. So like, you realize 25% means you're going to pay 25%. No, it doesn't. Go, it's $1 today. I'm going to add.
I think
like, no.
I think what's his name, Justin Trudeau. I think he adopted a very good policy, a very good tactic. When was it Bourbon that he talked about? Was it that? Was it? I can't remember. Something like that, wasn't it? When he said, "Americans, you know this is going to cost you more now." And that was
but
like,
they don't though. They don't understand what a tariff is.
I remember having this discussion on the Lost Dollar Business Club with John. He said, tariffs, they don't make any difference. I thought, well, 25 points is going to go somewhere. It's either above the line or under the line. Somebody has to pick it up. But what can I say? I mean, it's.
Vicky's of a generation. So Vicky, tell us when you and your friends talk about tariffs and Trump, and I don't know if you guys talk about Gaza. Yes, Vicky, we're not going to bring up the fact that you're the South Korean president's ex-mistress. Only now you're the North Korean mistress. So what do you think? What's your friends and you say about it? The mistress part or the tariff part?
Well, actually, getting back to when you were talking about, walking around in the street corner at 2:00 in the morning with your jewels on and everything and feeling perfectly safe. Like, I did that in Seoul. Of course, I didn't have a Prada bag, but like I could walk around at 2:00 in the morning by myself in a park or wherever and be perfectly safe. And it's not a dictatorship, clearly, because they are now exercising democracy in quite an amazing way. The process anyway. So, but there's cameras, there's CCTV everywhere, and there's, a relatively corrupt police force and, a sort of collectivist society where everyone's kind of looks out for each other or reports each other or whatever, but you still have a democratic government. I think what, when Shahzad in his article talks about it's a benevolent dictatorship. And I think what a lot of younger people don't understand is what a non-benevolent dictatorship looks like, or when the benevolency turns and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're living under, all of a sudden, the bad side of that coin. And it's like, oh yeah, this is great. They're going to build an airport. Well, then all of a sudden, you're not allowed to be on it because you're a female, or you're, you can't
that makes sense.
Go outside and use it or whatever all of a sudden. Yeah. So it's like, oh, it's great. I have that, but I can't, or I said one comment about, oh, I think it's a stupid airport. And all of a sudden my whole family's dead or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand that part of it. It's frustrating, but, I think I can't speak for a generation, but there were a lot of the quote unquote protest votes of, well, Biden is soft on the war and they're not for Palestine, so I'm just not going to vote because he's just as bad. They're all the same. They're all just as bad. And, all the politicians are corrupt. Well, yes and no. They're kind of all the same and they're kind of all not the same. So, but those weren't the people that lost the election. It's the people who switched. It was the switch voters who voted for Biden before and switched to Trump. So it wasn't even the people who didn't vote. It was the voters who turned. And it was the stupid people who were like, well, I gave Biden a chance and now, I want these tariffs because I can't afford eggs, or I want, this kind of stuff. Or just like, and they all voted, I think, very selfishly, thinking about their own issues.
Right.
I want to be able to pay less at the pump, or I want to be able to do this. And all of a sudden they're realizing, oh shit, they're deporting people and they're this and they're that. And like, they didn't care about anybody else. They just cared about themselves. And now when their own situation isn't any better, they're kind of waking up to the fact that like, yeah, you were sold a bill of goods and you're not going to get it. So I don't know. I think younger people, it's really hard to vote because, it's easier to vote for American Idol. Like you can vote on your phone or whatever, and they make it difficult on purpose. And like this is the first election I actually couldn't vote in. Because Texas wouldn't let me do a write-in ballot because I am not handicapped. The only thing they will make concessions for is if you physically can't get to the polls. And so I was out of the country, and so I couldn't vote. it's frustrating because they make it difficult on purpose. And so you do
I,
get disillusioned with that. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if
I,
I do or I don't. I end up
and I
with this
think that
shit. So,
and I think that you have touched quite closely on where we look at this young demographic and where they're getting so frustrated with the way things are, because the thing is just not been serving them properly. And when you have these frustrations, well, look, in a society where everything does work. So, for example, in Dubai, there is no revolt. There are no
Right.
protests because everything works. What I mean? It's like, as long as you behave yourself, you got a good job, then everything is sorted, everything is working, nothing is breaking, and they're building new stuff, and it's great. So you go, when everything works, people don't have a reason to complain. But when things don't work, they have a reason to complain. And I don't think ultimately it matters whether it's a democracy or not, because like you just said, you have a situation in America now where people are being deported and things are being imposed, and those are the actions of a dictatorship, not of a democracy. That happens in a dictatorship. So already, even in a democracy, you are getting the actions of a dictatorship. A dictator is a sort of person that chooses to go to war with the whole rest of the world, whether it's on tariffs or whether it's with guns or whatever. But that's what Trump is basically doing at the moment. It's like, yeah, we're going to war with Mexico and Canada. We're looking at China, and then we're looking at Europe and UK. You better behave yourselves because we're thinking about you as well. So I mean, that's a dictator's behavior. So I think that there's a frustration, and if things were better, and if there was good leadership that actually knew what they were doing, and I don't know if this is a lament of old fuddy-duddies like us going, oh, they don't make leaders like they used to, sort of thing.
Right.
But if there was good leadership, you wouldn't have these people going, oh, yeah, I quite fancy a dictatorship, actually, because they wouldn't be frustrated. You look right now, yesterday or day before, there was news that in London, the London mayor, good old buddy of mine, Sadiq Bloody Khan, he's created a night squad. You remember, he used to have a night czar. Now he has a night squad. And the reason that he's created this night squad is he wants to try and understand why London is losing nightlife, why people aren't coming. Dude, I can tell you. Because everybody that goes to London gets their wristwatch stolen, their phone stolen, or gets stabbed. And B, there's nowhere to drive and park. And nobody wants to go to nightlife and have to take the London Underground. Dude, you don't understand the basics of it. And so there comes the frustration of going, well, this is a leader who's trying to solve a problem that he's created and not actually understanding that at all, And I think that's where you get this frustration from people.
Yeah, there's a disconnect where they feel like they don't have any representation, because politics now, it's not people getting into it as a noble profession, a la the Kennedys or whatever. It's all now, you're basically employed by lobbyists, and you get in so that you can make a certain amount of money and pad your own, nest. And you don't work for the people, you work for the lobbyists that pay you off. And so you're just trying to get a sweet deal and screw your constituents, because once you're in, there's nothing they can do to get you out, really. So it's kind of not representing the people anymore.
And again, exactly based on what you're saying, there is also the sincerity and the credibility of this new generation of politicians. Because what happens is that as soon as you're part of a party, you then have to toe the party line. You then can't even express your own opinions anymore. And I think that people that follow these people, you vote them up there, and you see somebody, you hear what they're saying, you like what they're saying, you go, okay, we'll vote for this person. He becomes an MP. He's now part of the Conservative, Labour, whatever, but he's an MP now. So now he can't say anything that he really wants to say. And all of a sudden you're like, hang on, but that's not the same guy I voted for, or the same woman I voted for. So I think that there also is a frustration with people going that, well, the problem, and again, it's the party line politics. It's the bipartisan politics where, if you're in the Labour Party, these are the only things you can say. If you're in the Conservative Party, these are the only things you can say. And then the people in the middle are like, yeah, but where's the common sense area? Where's that area gone? Where's the stuff that makes sense to me? No, you're either on this side or this side.
And just so we're clear, history does repeat itself, because most people don't know what I'm about to read, but I figure this is just interesting. So you voted for the guy who wants to deport people. He's not the first. So in 1930 to 1933, as part of Hoover's policy, first mentioned in his 1930 State of the Union address, he, meaning Hoover, deported Mexican immigrants in the 30s, and it didn't matter if you were born in the United States or not. What Hoover did is if you looked Mexican, they put you on a train or a bus and they sent you back to Mexico. So there were a lot of Mexican Americans that got sent back. So history repeats itself. So the 30s apparently is what we're going to be coming into. And the Asian people probably forgot about their internment camps. So
Yeah.
this administration is
Sulu
basically
didn't.
just redoing yeah, right. But
George
this
Takei.
administration is George Takei, didn't forget. But this
No.
administration is doing the 30s and the 40s, not of just the United States, but of other countries, and that didn't end well. And how it ended was with a world war. So
Yeah.
with all his rhetoric, he's going to put us in a place where he says, I'm going to attack Greenland. If you attack Greenland, that's a war. Like that's an act of aggression.
Yeah.
And there's a guy with a mustache who did that, but he attacked Poland.
Yeah.
And once you do one, you're going to do another. And somewhere along the line, I find it, and maybe I'm just stupid, I find it hard to believe that the head of the military, the generals, even though they have the toys, do they really want a war? Do you really want to go at each other? Because once we attack Greenland, then you know what can happen. My friend Mr. Panda over in China can go after Taiwan, and we won't do crap about it because he's like, hey, you took Greenland, we can take Taiwan. Yeah. Then it becomes the game of risk. And then nobody is thinking through it. And all these people are like, oh, Donnie's great. Donnie's great.
Yeah.
You know what? Some of the executive orders he's put through, I'm all for. Yeah. And there's others that I'm saying, let's wait and see. And then there's the rest of them, it's like 30, 30, and 30, right? 10%, I have no clue. And there's a 30% where I'm like, dude, you're putting us in a dangerous situation. And the Democrats, they have in America, have their head up their ass. They don't have any balls. So this is going to keep happening. Getting Chuck Schumer to come on television and go, look, if this is a beer and this is an avocado. You're a fucking moron, pal. You need to have a Democrat up there that's like, listen, this is inherently wrong. It's against the Constitution. The president doesn't have this power. But nobody wants to say anything. Now they're investigating all the FBI agents that did the January 6th investigation. So we are becoming, unfortunately, a dictatorship. We are becoming 1930s/40s Germany. So enjoy your freedom, because at some point this won't be allowed. The Jon Stewarts of the world, the Bill Maher's, the John Olivers, this will be done. And everyone's going to be like, oh, that's shocking. Except apparently the idiots who think a dictatorship is awesome.
The Gen Z. But the Gen Z need to be educated. They don't know any better. But the reality is,
they're going to find out the hard way.
They're going to find out the hard way. But I think you have a saying in America, don't you? Turkey's voting for Thanksgiving. And I think that's the picture that comes to mind straight away. Not just even in America, but even what's happening here. And the thing is, it's foreboding and it's not good news. But if you look at what's happening across Europe, where you do have the rise of the right, in the UK, we have a Conservative Party that, after 14 years, has been left with completely no credibility whatsoever. They're in total disarray. And then you have a Labour Party that just 6 months in, everybody's already hating, even though they won on a landslide. But now everybody's like, oh yeah, but they're crap, aren't they? So then what do you have left? The party that's rising. The party that's rising here, worryingly, dangerously, is Reform. And Reform is the party that's led by Nigel Farage, which of course is buddies with Trump and on and off buddies with Elon Musk. I think they're friends again, or they're not. I'm not sure. They're frenemies, whatever. But it's all part of the same cabal. And when you think about, now I'm in a very curious place here, because a lot of the stuff that Reform says, it's a bit like America. They say the populist things. So a lot of those Trumpian policies that we were talking about earlier are similar things to what Reform would say. So the populist part of that comes into play. Now with the car community, for example, the car community like Reform, because Reform says, we're not going to enforce electric cars on you. We're going to let you build the cars. It's the sort of things that Trump says. So people like me, people come to me like, oh, you should support the Reform Party. I'm like, no, I can't support the Reform Party, because if the Reform Party wants to get in, what they want to do is they want to line up people like me and shoot them outside of Bradford. That's what they want to do. You know what I mean? So yeah, like you said, people got short memories. The Mexican deportations, the Japanese internments, people got very short memories. These things actually aren't that long ago. They happened before. They could happen again.
Well, they're already starting.
You can see that the whole of Europe's going to the right.
Yeah, well, Germany especially now.
Well, we'll see what happens in Germany, because I think that's going to be the litmus test for it all. But you have places which are openly right wing, Hungary, Going up, people who think, okay, you're nearer to Russia than the rest of us. But yeah, this whole thing about the left has just lost any form of credibility. And it's just all rhetoric. So, well, we can do this or we can do that, or we'll talk. What the problem is, of course, with democracy, and I've said this to a lot of people in the past. Democracy is like a horse with 3 legs. It has movement, but it has the inbuilt ability to continuously go around in circles. So when you first encounter democracy, you say, "Oh, it's moving. It's all moving. We're going in the right place." And then all, after a sudden, 5 years, 10 years, where come back to exactly the same place, same old table that everybody's sitting around. We have a joke here. I once went to a meeting, and the guy walked into the meeting. The guy said, "Oh," I said, "that's a wonderful looking table." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, is this the level of the meeting we're now about to go into? That the first person I meet is more concerned about the quality of the table that we're sitting on, and that's a little bit where the world is today. We sort of think we're all, oh, that's okay, yeah, they are,
It won't happen here.
Well,
we
that's the
can't,
attitude.
if we can't see beyond the table, then we're not seeing anything at all. And I think that's fundamentally the problem.
But it was interesting. I read an article last week about flooding the zone, which is an Americanism. I think comes from American football. And I've been and since that sort of lit a light in my head, I thought, oh, now I understand it. The Trump administration, I think this came from when Steve Bannon was working for Trump. They absolutely pump crap continuously into the media, which is the only thing that the media sees, and it finds all these little pearls of oh yeah, that could be good. Oh, look at that. Oh, and it feeds on it, and in that flow of poo is actually what Trump wants to do. And going back to Steve's point, that's exactly what the Nazis did in the 30s.
Yeah,
they flooded the zone with all. It's them.
And they're normalizing it. They normalize it. Yeah, and that's the problem. And the thing is, like, was it a week ago that we had the commemoration of the tragic events at Auschwitz, right?
80 years.
And how many years was it?
80.
80 years, incredible. But again, not that long ago, if you think, within the century, if you think about it, right? And the over-abiding message of something like that, and the reason that we need to talk about stuff like that, is the never again message. The message that we need to learn from history, that we need to realize what we were capable of, what we did, and what we shouldn't do again.
You interview young people here in Holland, and they ask them about Auschwitz. And I mean, half of Amsterdam got emptied. So it's not as if the Dutch don't know anything about what happened to the Jews.
Yeah.
And
A lot of people don't think it happened.
But the thing is that, again,
it didn't happen. What's that? Who cares? One kid said, "Well, who cares?"
But it's not even just who cares. It's like not being able to put it into the whole point of history. To me, the reason that we should learn and read and study history is to not repeat our mistakes, because we should learn from history. But the trouble is that, like, there was a radio show that was I was driving that day, and it was talk radio, and the radio presenter, people were calling in, and they were talking. It was the Auschwitz day, and people were calling in, and they wanted to talk about Gaza, they wanted to talk about Ukraine, they wanted to talk about the rise of the far right, and it made sense because they were talking about these things in the context of never again. We must learn from these things. But the radio presenter kept shutting them down. They're like, no, today we're only talking about this. We're only talking about, we don't need to bring these other things in. I'm like, dude, you're missing the point. That is the point. The reason that we need to talk about that is so that we don't do the same things today. And we are heading in the same direction, as you rightly said.
Remember what's important, Shazad, is the table. It's a beautiful table. That's the most important thing. And it's the coffee okay. Other than that, But again, but also we don't want to show people. There was a debate here. So do we have to see all that real footage? Can't we just talk about it? Yes, you do have to see all the footage. Yeah. And you do have to hear of the veterans that went in, the soldiers that went in, and what they first saw. Yes, you have to hear all of that and more.
I think,
if we watch that, then there's a whole evening of that. We'd much rather watch some, talent show or some quiz program, because that's more entertaining.
I think
This is
look
what
every
happens when you
time
don't teach kids.
yeah, every time you see some, every time you think of, if you describe something to somebody, then in the back of their head they're like, yeah, but we're humans, we're not capable of that. It's only when you see stuff like that that you go, this is what humans are capable of if we're let off the leash, if we're completely, not reined in. This is what could happen. And I think this is where it's important to look at those events and to replay those events and to tell people about those events and show people those events, because if we don't, then out of mind, out of mind, out of memory. So it's
But I'd
those,
like to add to that,
it's
because
inevitable that they will be repeated.
I don't actually wholeheartedly agree with that about being let off the leash. I think the reason why it continued is it became normal,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that's the most scariest thing. It was okay. So why shouldn't we?
I
Why
mean,
why
in
should
many,
we? They have no value. They're
yeah,
valueless.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And
it's
this is
it's not like
the
it.
thing. It's like, who do you end up blaming? So, for example, like when you have every German soldier, and you go, right, well, every German soldier responsible, and you go, well, to an extent, it was normalized for them because
Right.
it was made their orders, it was made their function. So, like, is that German soldier evil, or is the philosophy or the concept that made him do that evil? And then what and who should actually be punished for that? I mean, that's a whole other question. But
It's a
you
whole
know,
another show.
that's a whole other show. But the
Yeah.
reality is that that's what then dictates the actions of people, which is something that starts from the top, filters down, makes things normal, which is what we're seeing now, which is
Right.
why we live in dangerous times.
Flood the zone. That's my thing up.
Mm,
That's been
Well,
haunting me since I first read it 2 weeks ago.
mm,
but here's what
Flooding the zone.
we discussed this too about Mein Kampf. Like I said, it's 800 some odd pages. If you read it, the first 400 and so pages, great book, talks about infrastructure, how you get a country together, how you run a country properly. The problem is that you get to page 451, and then the next sentence is, now you kill all the Jews. And that's where the book takes a turn. And I'm kind of like, up until this, it's a good book. And that's why when I read it when I was in the 8th grade. I never forgot it because everyone said, Mein Kampf. I'm like, I'm going to read this book. So I would read it during study hall. And my teachers didn't care. I would read it, and I'm like, yeah, good, no problems, no problems. And I was like, I don't see what the problem is. Halfway through, like I said, when I got to that one page, it says, now you kill the Jews. And then the next 400 pages is all about how you exterminate this race. I was like, oh, I see where the problem is. That's the problem. And so, if you will, with Mr. Trump pardoning 1,500 people, and you have Musk with his robots, you have all this stuff going on. It's just a different version of that. It's just, and Hitler didn't hide it. Trump's not really hiding it. They're trying to, that they realize, to their credit, that the Democrats are pussies, the American public in general, pussies, and whatever shit you give them, they're going to take. There's not going to be a civil war. There's not going to be a revolution. There's not going to be a leader. They're just going to be sheep and follow. So shows like this and the comedians that make fun of it and bring it to people's attention, to the 1% of the population, and goes, they're right. That 1% still won't do anything, because they're like, what can we do? I'm just shocked that, like, if Trump wants to go invade a country, our military would go, yes, Mr. President. At some point, someone's going to be like, hey, it's kind of violates, like, I don't know, the Geneva Convention. This can, like, all the stuff that we're supposedly stand for, and you, like, boom. So
yeah, I mean, you can see the dismantling of
Yeah.
all of the infrastructures that were put in place after the Second World War to prevent the Third World War happening. You know what I mean? It's like that's why we did it, because we learned from what happened, and we were like, oh, never again. Let's put these structures in place so that we've got these conventions and what have you to make sure that doesn't happen again. But it's like, oh no, when we just take them apart, and again, that process of normalization that's happening, then you just go, oh well, okay, we invade this country, now we're going to invade that country.
I always thought there'd be a civil war in the US. I've changed my mind on that now. I think it's fascism by stealth.
Yeah, I agree.
Fascism by stealth.
I
think that's even. Sorry, Vic. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just that's even more scary, I think. For you guys.
I think
I thought states like California and Texas, the ones that could exist on their own as a country, at some point would secede because their own economy and policies were better off without the union than they were in it. And I thought that they would eventually leave, but I don't think
We're
that's
going to go
going to
back to
happen anymore.
Mexico. Texas is going to go back to Mexico. The people we stole it from. Is that what we're going to do?
I know
California
the
screwed up
Republic
with
of
all their.
Texas. It's bigger,
Yeah.
bigger than France, but
I know.
I thought that last time, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. It's just,
No.
I don't think it's.
Texas
There's
is
too
all
many people in
Republican.
place now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's too many people in place in key areas that we can't really do any. Our hands are tied basically now.
And,
We just
and
have
it's
to
not going to matter where you
take over and
move.
take it.
It's not going to matter where you move in the world, whether I go to Dubai and live there tomorrow, or I go live in Thailand, or I go live on Pluto. Maybe Pluto is safe, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter where you go live on the world. In the world, you're going to be screwed
Yeah.
because if there's a
Right.
world war this time it's going to be more vicious than the one in the 40s.
Yeah.
He's not just talking nuclear, just the mentality and that people don't have a respect for anything.
Yeah.
So, Dubai, I mean, I'm sure we defend them. The U.S. defends them. So if they say to the monarch over there, listen, you're going to get rid of all the Americans, you're going to kick them out, or we're not going to defend you. What are they going to do? Call Saudi Arabia? I mean, so there's so much geopolitical things going on, and these little moves that Trump is doing now, I think he's kind of like what Hitler did. You're testing the water to see what you can get away with. What the Democrats here are going to do, nothing, because they're pussies and they have no balls and they got nobody and they don't have anybody that stands up to them. So nothing's going to happen. So he's like, oh, I can keep just signing this shit and I'll sign 10 million executive orders and 30% of them will stick. The others won't. Like somebody said, now Musk has control of the Treasury Department and the payment system.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at everything that's going on, we are literally just giving the oligarchs the country and nobody cares. The problem is that the oligarchs keep forgetting that, and I've said this before, there's 8 billion people in the world and maybe 1 billion people are doing okay. The other 7 billion aren't. At some point, whether Elon dispenses his robots or not to keep the peace, 7 billion people are going to take a picnic. And when they take that picnic, you're going to have, off with their heads France. And nobody's going to save you unless you get your spaceship and you get your ass out of here and you go to Mars.
Oh,
And
here we
that's
go
what's
then.
going to happen.
Hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. Are we all sitting comfortably?
But no, that's what I'm saying is it's to that point.
About, again, I'm going to bring my Star Trek references in, but you talk about the fact that Star Trek represents a utopia in the future, in the 23rd century on the planet. That utopia came out of what in the fictional world of Star Trek was, I think, the Genome Wars, which eradicated a third of the population of the planet. So there was, even in Star Trek fictional lore, there is a massive catastrophic event that happens in order to create a new era where things will, where again we go, oh, never again. Let's sort this out. Let's make it proper. But and not to end this show on a doomy and gloomy note, but hopefully we can figure out a way of avoiding that catastrophic event within our lifetimes. But I'm just waiting for AI to achieve full sentience consciousness and just take over the planet.
Yeah, well, we at the Lizard People Illuminati Club next week. That'll be happening. And really, the reason we're sending Vicky back to North Korea to be the mistress of Missile Boy because we need him not to push the buttons. So there you go. Because we saw how good she did in South Korea.
Vic. We'll just see if we can teleport you out. No, she's still there.
Vicky, before we leave, do you have any comments that you would like to say on behalf of Gen X or Z or Y or whatever generation you're from?
Vicky coup d'etat from today.
There you go. What do you got, Vicky?
See what I have to put up with? Like I don't know anymore.
We love you, Vicky.
Here's the thing. Here's how I'll end it. Okay. Here's how you avoid World War III. Bird flu.
Oh yeah.
Nice. There we go. Oh my God.
We're gonna have another pandemic, and it's gonna shut all this shit down because everyone's gonna be worried about dying, and that's our only hope. As sad as that might be. That's my takeaway for the week. Enjoy.
Something to look forward to it.
Yeah, back to 10% of the world population, and off we go again.
Right. There you go. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Those who watched live, for those that are watching this rebroadcast, you're probably dead.
For those of them who haven't gone and slit their wrist after watching.
That's right. No, they're all whatchamacallit. They're all like, these people should run the world. That'd be great. Anyway, thank you for watching.
What the comments say.
Yeah, I can't wait to see those. Don't forget to
Yeah.
subscribe and like. You can catch us, of course, here on our channel or wherever you get your podcasts under Two Old Farts Making Noises. That's TWO. You can do the rest. If you don't want to look at our pretty faces, you can listen to us. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Brown Car Guy will be back next month with another episode of Sermon on the German, or maybe a new title. We're not sure yet. And we will go from there. And that's it. Vicky, it's always good to see you. David, good to see you.
Yeah,
And to
Vic,
all our
we
fans,
missed
thank you so
you.
much
We
for
missed you.
watching.
Yeah.
You
No, don't tell
too.
her
You
that.
too, Mr.
Don't tell her
Vacation.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't tell her that. Then she'll come back. Anyway, we'll see everybody on the next shows. Thank you for watching and subscribing. Everybody have a great day. Cheers, everybody.